so blessed to be here. I love the Philippines, and every day I get asked why am I here, and maybe another story for another time. Well, I'd like to share with you something that, actually the shortest time I talk about this is about 2 hours. So when I got challenged to do this in 20 minutes, I actually loved it because it forced me to ask the question, what is most important? In this short time, and I love TED Talks, I've been listening to them for years, how can I deliver the most important aspects of the rapid planning method, which I'm going to share with you. So this is going to be interactive, so I'll be asking you questions. Let me ask you a question. Has there ever been a book that you have read that has transformed your thinking? Can you think of examples? I know you, Janet. Can you just put up a hand that you've read a book and it's actually transformed the way you think? You think of books that have played a major, after you read it, it actually changed the way you see the world, or even the way you see yourself. Now, one of the books that did that for me was 3 years ago, a book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And I love the speakers previously because really in the last 20 years we know more about how the human mind works than we have in human history, which our earlier speakers talked about. So one aspect in that book, he talks about keystone habits, something called keystone habits. I want to share some examples so that you get a full context of this. But a keystone habit essentially is a habit that is far more powerful than any other habits. It becomes a breeding ground for other habits, other success habits. So let's take a couple of examples. Any people meditate here? Any meditation people? Okay. So I meditate daily. For years I resisted it. I thought it was nonsense. I thought, I don't have time to meditate and all this. Then my friend told me, okay Mike, go on Google, type in CEOs that meditate. And I was just blown away at the amount of high-profile, successful people that use this practice and swear that this practice is a massive influence on their success. Another example of a keystone habit is exercise. So for those people that exercise regularly, this is scientific, this is not an opinion. Scientifically proven that that discipline and that confidence of mastering your own body, that passes on to other areas of your life, like your finances, relationships, your spirituality. Another keystone habit for families is the families that eat together. And once again, not an opinion, this is based on science. It's proven that the families that regularly eat together, that make that a habit of the family, have better relationships. Over time, they've tracked this. So my key message here, and I want to link it back, there are certain habits that we have that can have a more powerful impact than other habits. And the reason I'm sharing that is because I believe that the RPM, whatever label once we go through it, you'll have already, this will be familiar to you, but I'm labeling this type of thinking RPM. But I sincerely believe, that RPM is one of those habits that can be regarded as a keystone habit. And I'm sharing that not because I teach it, but I'm sharing it because I've applied it to my own life, especially in my personal life. And I've seen massive results. The rapid planning method. So before I jump on to explain the method, I want to first, which I always do, is what problem are we trying to solve? So before we introduce any solution or initiative, we always need to know first what problem we're trying to solve. So let me ask a question. Have you ever asked someone, and it could be in your family or it could be in work, have you ever asked someone to do something for you and then they responded, sorry, I didn't get a chance to do that. I was busy. Can you feel that pain?
Yes.
What are they really saying? What are they really saying? What are the answers? When they say they're busy, what are they really saying?
Something else.
Not important, doing something else. There's two possible root causes. They did something else that they thought was more important. Remember, perceived, they thought that was more important. Or they did something else that they thought was more urgent. So is it fair to say we have a crisis in priorities, both in our families and our organizations? A great test of this is, and you can do this with your own people, or you can do it with other departments, get an employee to write down what they believe their priorities are. And then compare that to what the manager believes his or her priorities are. Every time we've done these exercises, we've seen massive differences. Even when I did this, when my own boss did this to me 5 years ago, massive difference in what I thought was my priorities versus what he thought. Now think of that multiplied in all across your organizations. A lot of organizations that I've worked with, and I've been blessed to have been in 8 countries now. Now I'm finally, even though my mother's still thinking, when is he coming back? But finally I'm making the Philippines my home. But every time, every organization I engage with, even in churches and not-for-profits, I was in a hospital last week. Actually, it was a funny introduction to give me. I spoke to about 70 doctors last week, and the MC said, "No, we thought you'd be older than this." So I apologize for my perceived youthfulness, if I've disappointed you there. But in all organizations I work with, it's busy. Oh, we're so busy, we're so busy, so busy. A lot of managers, really high-performing managers I've worked with, so busy, so busy, so busy. But let's be honest with ourselves. A lot of us, and I'm putting my hands up here as guilty number 1, the worst sinner of all. All of us are busy working on the wrong things. Activity does not equal progress. Isn't that true? Activity does not equal progress. Just because I'm busy, remember, a lot of people are actually addicted to urgency. That's why they're on their phones. Or urgency, 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 urgency. Massive addiction that people don't talk about. We talk about drugs, narcotics, sex, all great addictions. But urgency, wow, that's a massive addiction. A lot of people are addicted to urgency. My assumption is that most people wrote activities, including me activities. Let's say, I don't know, cook dinner for the kids, pick up something, send an email to this, etc., etc. Most of us think in activities. What are we going to do? But the first part of RPM, this type of thinking, is not what are we going to do, or what am I going to do, but what results am I looking for? What desired outcome am I looking for? Huge shift in thinking. Huge shift. It's tiny, but I want you to see the shift that could potentially create in relationships, that could potentially create in the work environment when you start asking that question in terms of outcomes. I'll give an example. I'll give a business example, and I'll give a personal example. I worked with a CFO who wanted to give a presentation to the management team with respect to some changes in some policy. That was his activity. But when I asked him, well, what is your desired results here? He started thinking. He said, well, actually, I want them to know what they need to do differently in response to this change. So once he started thinking in terms of outcome, it totally changed. But the presentation was still part of it, but then he followed up with one-on-ones, etc. There's a big difference between activity and result. And usually when I do this in a class, I actually get people to write out their to-do list for the next 4 or 5 days, and we actually apply thinking right there and then. Big difference between activity and result. Okay, maybe some of you will be spending some time with children. Play with a child. But what is the desired result? The desired result could be 2 things. It could be a measurement, so it could be get from X% to Y%, or it could be a feeling. In the case with children, maybe it's I want that child to be felt loved. I want that child to know that in me, they're safe. Big difference. If we have more clarity on what results we're looking for, think of the massive impact that will have. The second part of RPM is the next question, and it's why? Why do we want to achieve that desired result? I tell you the truth, I've been searching around studying success for 5 years, and I know I'm still a baby. Fascinated by it. I started off as a chemical engineer, and I accidentally fell into this subject of people development, and I've been fascinated by it since. But I firmly believe that success in life, success in business, success in relationships, all great men and women in history, 80% of success comes from the why. Knowing with clarity why they did what they did. I too took the tour of your Intramores recently. I did it with Bambikes, my friend Brian with Bambikes. And I got very emotional when I started reading the last letters of Rizal, the national hero. who was obviously shot by the Spaniards in 1896. And I started becoming fascinated with this man, because yet he's another great example in history of a man who knew exactly why he did what he did. When I started reading about him, he had opportunities to escape. He didn't have to come back to the Philippines. Bonifacio, the other hero, actually broke onto the ship and gave him an opportunity to escape. But he said, no, this is my fate. So I'm not saying to agree or disagree, but all successful people in history, including people who we regard as heroes, like I regard my father as my hero, they knew exactly the why. So the why is powerful. So why do you want to achieve that particular result? So remember, your why could be different from his why, and your why could be different from that person's why. Now, I first started teaching Death by PowerPoint 6 years ago. I was so ineffective when I started teaching. I'm so angry at myself when I look back, when I started with my PowerPoints, and when I first started teaching when I was living in the US. And I'll show you an example of a massive mistake that I made. I had a PowerPoint slide that said, because I was teaching problem solving, scientific problem solving, why you should improve your problem solving skills. And I put 5 bullets of why you should improve your problem solving skills. How disrespectful is that? When I do it today, I never tell the why. I instead just ask, well, why do you think you should improve your problem solving skills? It's the most important single exercise of the entire training. And when we do it, actually sometimes I spend an hour on that one question, because I keep on saying, what else? What else? What else? And a class that I've done recently came up with 50 answers, 50 plus answers of why you should improve your problem solving skills. Because the motive drives action. So you need to understand the why. Another great way of asking the why, and this I learned from the CEO I worked with in Africa, instead of saying, why should we do this? He asked, what is the consequences of not doing this? So I want you to visualize what a world would look like, what your family would look like, what your business would look like if everyone in the organization was doing this thinking. Think of how meetings would start. Rather than say, blah, 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 this is what we're doing, what if one of the first questions was, hey, what's the desired outcome of this meeting? What's the purpose of that outcome? Think how more effective those meetings are. Think of delegation. How many times have we been frustrated with delegation that didn't work out? Well, what if we use what I believe is a higher form of delegation, called leverage? Leverage is significantly different to delegation. Delegation, here's your task, go do it. Leverage is you give them, here's the desired outcome. Here's the results we're looking for. This is why we want to achieve this result. Hey, and this is why you may want to achieve this result. The classic, what's in it for me? How you go about it, I want to empower you to do so. You may give them a coaching and advice, hey, this is how I would do it, if you were to ask me. But if you find a better way, you go for it. That's leverage. It's a distinct difference between leverage and classic delegation. So I do a lot of interviews. I interview people for my podcast, for Best View. And one of the questions I ask people is, what's your favorite quotation? And one of my earlier guests, his favorite quotation was, the biggest gap in the world is not between knowledge and ignorance. The biggest gap in the world is between knowing and doing. Between knowing and doing. It's not what you say or do, it's what you say or do consistently that counts. It's what you say or do consistently that counts. Is it true that small things can have a massive difference in relationships? We think of your partners. Is there small things, I think I was speaking to someone about the love languages. Is there small things we can do in our relationships that have a massive impact on the other partner? True or false? True. So I believe, with RPM in particular, there's small habits that we can do that can have a massive impact, transformational impact on how the organization thinks, how the organization acts, and how the organization reacts. So I'm coming close to my time, but I want to end on a personal story. I've been, I guess, like a lot of people here, searching and failing. Searching and failing. Working with some amazing men and women around the world, but what pains me the most when I look back is that when I wasn't able to make the impact that I potentially could have made. And it really hurts me, and I've worked in hospitals and churches, in BPOs, etc. When I know I could have helped that person, but yes, for some reason, I wasn't able to make the impact. And especially at the beginning of my career, who did I blame the most? Everyone else except me. Then my teacher told me, there's no such thing as a bad student, Mike, only a bad teacher. And it made me look within, constantly made me look within, reflecting what could I have done better. And I really sincerely believe the concept of keystone habits. That there are certain habits that, wow, if you get this right, it can have a massive impact. Massive impact. I'm not talking just in organizations. I work with a lot of CEOs where a lot of times they reflect this on their own personal health, or their relationship with their children, or their spiritual journey. What if we develop success habits, keystone habits, in those areas? So I know that the topic of the theme of today was the next big thing. I really challenge everyone here, when they get something new and exciting, what about asking, how can we make this a habit? What programs can we develop in our organization that actually can make this a habit? That's why the research over the last 20 years is absolutely fascinating, because we're seeing proven ways for organizations to create success habits within their employees. Proven ways. And I think there's three elements to it. There's the mindset element, there's the strategy element, and there's the community element. Like groups, hands down, this is proven. Hands down, groups will have success habits faster than an individual working on their own. It's true. Whether that be reading your Bible, whether that be exercise, whatever the habit that you want in particular. Groups, the power of a small group. So a key challenge we have for all of us is, how can we create habit-forming programs in our organizations? So that the new knowledge that we're seeking, and this research is showing it's proven to work, how can we apply that to our setting? Not just our organizations, but apply this in our families, apply this in our relationships, apply this in our relationship with people. So this stuff makes a difference. This stuff really makes a transformational difference. So, I see 21 minutes. I've exceeded by 1 minute. So I'm very grateful, and now I'm excited to see what challenging questions we have for me. So, Madam Salam.